Hello, I'm going to demonstrate how to create an 8.5 by 11 ad in InDesign that will be print ready. What we will be doing first is go to File, New Document. Hover over here to the print presets and choose letter. So you want to make sure it's 8.5 by 11 and it's portrait orientation, not horizontal. It's in inches. For right now, we're going to start with one page, and I'm going to edit columns and margins once I get into my files so I can preview it ahead of time. We don't want facing pages. This is a single page ad, so it will not be part of a 2-page spread or a booklet. We can go ahead and give our document a title. So let's hit create. Double check your workspace. So just up here in the right-hand corner, make sure you choose the typography workspace if you haven't already or that's not visible right now. Let's set up some guides and some columns. So if you'll go up to your menu, go to Layout, Margins and Columns. And for today's tutorial, I'm going to change a few of these, make it a little more custom. Instead of 1/2 inch margins, I'm going to go up to 3/4 inch margins, so 0.75 inches. If this little link is activated, it will change all of the margins at one time. So if you want to change just one margin, you need to unclick that and it will unlink them all. Preview. This allows you to see your margins on the document. And this is especially helpful when you start adding columns. For this design today, I'm going to add 4 columns. So I'm going to take the gutter up to 1/4 inch. So that made these spaces a little bigger. You can hide them if they're distracting, and then you can show them again. So you can turn them on and off. You can do this by going to View, Grids and Guides, Hide Guides. I'm going to show them. And there's also a keyboard shortcut you can do, Command semicolon, and then Command semicolon to turn them back on. I am going to first add an image to this page. I'm going to use the rectangle frame tool that's activated, and I'm going to click at the very top corner and drag over the entire design to make a box for a photo. So let's go up here to File, Place, and I'm going to navigate to my file. So I'm going to play with the placement of this image a little bit. When you hover over the center, a little circle appears, and this allows you to move the image around. I'm going to zoom out just a hair, and I'm going to make this image bigger. And hold my Shift key down and scale this image up and move it around. I would kind of like a more asymmetrical look with this design. This image, I happen to know, it's very high res. It was taken from a professional camera. It is plenty big enough for my design. But the way I can check that, if I hover over the circle in the center and click, I then see my outside bounding box, which shows me my full image. And then up here at the top, you're going to see some numbers. They're percentages. So this is telling me that this image is 57% of the full size of the image. So what that means is you want that number to be under 100. If you bypass the number 100, that means you've exceeded the size of the image that can be used for print. Double check this number always. If it is past 100, you have a few options. You can make your image smaller, or you can just find another image. It may be that that image is not the right one. If these should be the same, so this is 57.85%, 57.85%. And what this is telling me is that my image is the right proportions. If these numbers are ever different, let's say this top one is 55 and the bottom one is 57.85, that means I have accidentally stretched my image. You can see up here when I stretch my image, these numbers are different. Okay, so I am going to next add a headline to our ad. I will choose the type tool, and for right now, I'm just going to click and drag along the top of my image to create a text box. I am just going to type, "It takes a volunteer." So there's my text for the headline. I'm going to select it, and let's change the font, the color, and the size. I'm going to go down here to my character panel. And for now, I'm going to use Helvetica. I'm going to find just like a regular Helvetica. If I click this little hamburger menu on the right, I can make this text all caps. So instead of typing it all with my caps lock, I can choose all caps, and I'm going to make this much bigger. Now that I'm seeing this, I think it needs to be bolder. I'm going to play with the weight of this font. I'm gonna try bold. I still don't think that's quite bold enough. So I'm just gonna look for maybe some other options that come on my computer for Helvetica. There's actually a Helvetica Black on my computer. I'm going to separate these lines. I'm wondering if my text needs to go across the entire top of the design. And I'm also not sure I like it in black. I think it might need to be a different color. It's all 42 points in size right now. I'm going to make it bigger. I want volunteer to actually be bigger than it takes a. So I'm going to reduce the leading. I'm going to move my type all the way to the top of the grid that I created. So it's touching the grid on both sides. And then volunteer again is spanning all the way across. I'm going to change the color of this type. I'm going to try it in white. That's more of the feeling I want. There are places where you can't read the headline because it's blending with the sky behind the trees. You can always do the squint test to see if you can actually see all the letters and all the words, and I can't. So I definitely need to adjust this. I could change the color. I could darken the photograph in Photoshop, just maybe the sky part, but I could also just add a slight drop shadow using the effects panel on the right. With my text box selected, I'm going to click effects. And to add a drop shadow, you hit this little add an object effect. So it's FX. I'm gonna choose drop shadow. I can adjust the distance. So how far away is the shadow from the text? And I'm going to adjust the opacity, make it much less. That's feeling better. I can definitely read the text more. I'm going to hide my guides just to see what it's looking like. So command semicolon. And you can also hide the box that is around your text by going up to view extras, hide frame edges. So let's add some body text. I'm going to go back to the type tool and I'm just going to click and drag and make a column here on the right. And then right click, and I'm going to use the fill with placeholder text option. If I select my text, you can do that with Command A. I am also going to make this text Helvetica font. In my character panel, I am going to use a regular font. I'm also going to make it white. I need to look at my guides again. I need to see where my columns are and where this text actually makes sense. Command semicolon. I think my photo needs to move a little bit more. I'm just going to move this torchbearer over a little bit more so I have a little more room for my text. Feeling like this is a little too narrow. And maybe my type comes down here and uses up maybe a 2-column width. I'm also feeling like this type is a little hard to see in this design. I'm going to go back to my effects panel. So with the text selected, go to effects, add an effect. I'm going to do another drop shadow on my type and make the same adjustments I did before. And say, okay. So if I zoom in, I'm going to adjust this so it is about that length. And then there will be CTA at the end. For now, I'm just going to type in a URL. And for that URL, I'm going to make it bold so it stands out a little bit more. So the last thing we know we need is our logo. I'm going to play with putting the logo in this column beneath my text. Rectangle frame tool, I'm going to put it down here and then go File, Place, and let's try this white file. Because I have an orange background, my Power T is also orange, so it's blending into the background big time. I can add some contrast by adding a drop shadow. The more I'm looking at this, I really do like this photo. The text is hard to read. This is going to be a problem if someone actually needs to read my message. There's a couple things I can do. I can either change the photo, and that might be the first thing I try. And then I might just play with my layout and see if there's just some other design options that would make this more readable. One thing I often do is I would go over here to pages. You right click, you can duplicate your spread. So it duplicates all the text, the images, everything. And then you start playing with your design that way. I'm just going to show you a few other photos in this space and play with the layout a little bit. I'm going to try a different torchbearer photo. This one's better. You know, in this case, I might actually move my text around, might reduce the size of this text a little bit so it's not right on top of that flame. I don't know if any of these images are really working for me though. I still love the colors in this first one, I'm going to make another duplicate of my first one. And let's try something completely different. I think color blocking is always a smart idea. Move my image up, maybe adjust the placement a little bit. Let's make a rectangle, maybe along the bottom of this design, and fill it with white. I'm going to put all my text down here in the white section. Thinking about my rule of thirds, if I'm looking at this overall design, this white section is taking up about a third of the design. If I move my type down here, I also need to bring this type to the front. So right click it, arrange, bring to front. If I drag it over here, it's now in front of this white box. So I'm going to select it. Let's make it black for now, just so I can see it. I don't need the drop shadow anymore because I'm on a white box. I'm going to go over here to effects. So if I click my type box, you can see this FX over here. I just want to get rid of it. So I'm going to remove the effect. So I select that first line, click remove, and it's gone. This text is now, it feels a little big for my space. So what if I made it smaller and placed it in 3/4 of the size of my design here? I'm going to do the same with my type over here. I'm going to make it a darker color and remove that drop shadow I had, and then move my text. And then bring it to the front, arrange, bring to front. Maybe this spans 3/4 of the way as well. Also going to move my logo over here. Arrange, bring to front, remove the effect. I don't need my white logo. I'm going to go back to File, Place. I think the logo needs to be in its own column and it needs to command more attention. This black text is also not working necessarily because I have a lot of grays and I have gray in my logo. So some of this probably needs to be a gray color instead. I'm going to make this box just a little bigger so my text has a little more room to breathe. Let's show our columns again. Move this up so all of my type fits within my columns. Might adjust the size of my body copy here. 12 point is considered kind of big when it comes to body copy. Just maybe make it 11. Maybe give it a little more leading, feels a little more airy. Let's go to the paragraph panel and make sure this text does not hyphenate. So remove the hyphenation. This CTA and my logo to be aligned. That logo is fitting nicely in this column. So I mentioned a minute ago, I don't like this black type. So let's create a new swatch, maybe a couple new swatches. I'm gonna go up here to swatch, new color swatch. I'm going to first make a gray. So I'm going to do an 80% black, click OK. Also going to make my body text this gray color. I think I'd like to have some kind of orange element down here. We have a lot of orange in our photograph. We have an orange logo. I'm going to add or create a new swatch for UT orange. And click OK. And always make sure this is in CMYK, but we're good to go here. But I might play with the word volunteer being orange. And just to maybe make this headline a little more interesting, it takes feels kind of heavy on top of this orange. I'm going to add a stroke, just a stroke to the outside. So I'm going to switch the gray to be a stroke instead. So in my swatches panel or down here, you can just click this little arrow and it'll switch it. So now this is a stroke instead of a fill. I might adjust the stroke. Make it a little thinner. I'm going to reduce the leading just a little more. I'm going to move this headline down just a little so it feels a little more connected. So if I zoom out, let's look at this ad as a whole again. Move my torchbearer a little. Let's look at our grid. You can also play with the opacity of this box. Have this box selected, go to effects, maybe adjust the opacity. That's too much. You can still see my type really clearly. You can see the logo really clearly. Let's go up here to pages. I had created some other pages when I was working on design. I would always save your work first. So let's save where we are. Now that I know I don't want this design, I don't want this design, and I want to keep this design. Let's get rid of these other two pages. So if you go back up to pages, click the designs you don't want and select them. You can hit delete selected spreads. To get this ready for print, I need to do a few things. Any images in your design, they have to be 300 DPI and they have to be CMYK. And there's a way to check this in InDesign. If I go up to Window, Links, I have this little link panel that will appear, and it shows me all the files that are linked in my document. I only have two. I have a logo file and my image. If I just click into a file in this links panel, down below, it shows me that this image is still an RGB image. To change that, and then it shows me, it says actual PPI, pixels per inch, is 240. I have to adjust that as well. How do we do it? We right click on the file. We say edit with Photoshop. It's going to open your file in Photoshop. And while you're here, if there's any color adjustments or anything else you want to make, now's a good time to do it. I might brighten my image just a little bit for image adjustments, use my levels, maybe bring out some whites a little bit more in my image, and adjust my midtones just a hair. Let's make this image mode CMYK instead of RGB. I'm going to click OK. And image size. I'm going to adjust this to 300 instead of 240. Click OK. And I'm just going to save this. It may automatically update this file in your InDesign file when you click back, or you may have to relink it. I have it selected. If I go down here, it says it's a CMYK image now, and it's 300 PPI or DPI. Let's double check this image isn't too large for this space. So if I click the image and check our numbers up here, it's 72% of the total size it can be. As long as that number is under 100, you're good to go. If for some reason this didn't link or didn't update when you updated the file in Photoshop, all you would need to do is click on the photo, say relink, and find the file that you just updated and say open, and it will relink that image to this. And same with this UT logo. This looks good. It says it's CMYK, it says it's 300 DPI, and let's just check our numbers up here, 48%. So this logo image is also ready to go. The very last step is to add some bleed to this design. Let's turn on our grids again. If this were an ad in a magazine is printed on these large sheets and then it's cut to size. So if your image just ends right where it's going to cut, the likelihood that that's going to cut correctly is really low. Before you send something to print, you want to add about 1/4 inch to 1/8 of an inch is a good amount of space. I'm just going to extend my photograph past that, and then I'm going to extend my white box past that. So you can see my guides. I'm just extending it off the page just a little bit. You can kind of eyeball this. There's also the rulers up here. You can look and see how much you're adjusting. If you don't have more photo, let's say this photo ends right here, then you need to adjust your photo. You need the photo to be a little larger, or you need to find a different photo if it's not large enough. Once I feel like a design is in a good place, to look at a PDF of the design, because you have all this stuff around your design and InDesign, it's really nice to see it singled out in a PDF. So let's export a PDF. Let's go to File, Export, and I'm going to export a print PDF for now. So I'm going to choose high quality print, and let's export it. Here I have my full page design. I think this looks really good. But again, looking at it in a PDF, you might notice things you didn't notice before and see changes you might want to make. So the very final step, if I'm happy with this design, is you need to package all the files up. So what you do, you go up to File, Package, and this is really great too. Let's say you forgot to check an image in your file. You would see right here that there is maybe one image that is an RGB image. So this kind of gives you an overview of, is your file actually ready to print? Just going to click Package, Save. Let's call it 1.0. Just click OK. So here it is. It's a package folder. So it's a folder. It has my InDesign file. It has a PDF, which we'll want to check in a second. It also comes with an IDML file. This allows older versions of InDesign to open this file. It includes your fonts. So if I'm on a computer that doesn't have the fonts in your file, I can still open your file and see the fonts. And then it has the linked images. Let's check this PDF. It's high resolution. This looks great. But once this is ready to go, on a Mac, you can do Control, click, and compress. And it's going to make a zip file of all of your files. It's also always a good idea to just double click this zip and make sure everything is there.
Once you zip your file, this is the file that you will provide to your printer to finish the job. So that is how you create an 8.5 by 11 ad design and prep it for print. You can download a free prep for print checklist in the link in the description below. Check out my other YouTube videos to learn more about InDesign and subscribe to Cry Studio for more graphic design tutorials. Thanks so much.